Hello and welcome to Mind Shifters Radio. I'm Tim Hayes. I'm your host for the first hour today. And today is a Friday, July 12th, 2019. And we are grateful for everybody who is joining us today live and those who are listening on the archives. And we join you in looking forward to another hour of discussing how to make our lives better, how to manage our emotions, our thoughts, our physical sensations, how to live a healthier, happier, more respectful, more productive life, how to have better relationships. And I know the more I talk about this, the more it sounds like too tall an order or some kind of a silver bullet, magic wand. But the fact of the matter is, we're here to make accessible tools that can do all of that and more if they're applied persistently and consistently, as Dr. Rice likes to say, to my life. And I've had that experience over the past 15 years that the more I use these tools, the better my life experience gets, day to day, moment to moment. And this is regardless of the outside circumstances. This is even in situations that I used to respond to with labels and thoughts, this is terrible, this is tragic, this is overwhelming. Even in those situations, when I use these tools, my life experience gets better. And I've had plenty of those since discovering these tools. And I often say, I can't even imagine going through those life circumstances, the things I didn't want, the things I would label as tragedies, the things I label as horrible, unlucky, unfair. I can't imagine going through those things that I've been through in the last 15 years without these tools, because I have experienced tremendous benefit at many levels and in many areas of my life. Because once I began using the tools and saw benefit, I decided to keep using the tools. And when I was drifting away from the use of the tools, I decided to set my life up in such a way that I'd be held accountable to use the tools. And that's part of why I'm here donating my time to this internet show 5 days a week, 1 hour a day, and sometimes 2 hours a day, 5 days a week. And it's why I've committed to and set up and followed through on keeping 2 support groups running. Because as I like to tell people, as silly as it sounds, or it might sound like doublespeak, if I didn't do this work, I wouldn't do this work. If I didn't set it up to hold myself accountable to have people who were going to show up on a Thursday night for a support group like they did last night, 2 people live in Crystal Lake and 1 person on the internet through Zoom. If they weren't there expecting me to show up and present some material and give an opportunity for a discussion and or a worksheet process, then I'm like every other human being. I probably would have been seduced by the bright lights and loud noises of the culture. And I remember I was talking to somebody recently and they were just pretty much shocked because they had spent some time with some old friends, and it was over the 4th of July weekend. And pretty much, he said, pretty much every year for 20 some years, these 4 friends have gotten together. And he was just really struck this time by how much common conversation there was about television shows and the stars on the shows and the plots of the shows that he was just completely out of touch with, because he keeps busy in his life with other things, with his work and his hobbies and his exercise and his reading and his reading about personal growth and self-help. And he was just shocked that these other very intelligent people, he thoroughly enjoyed spending time with them, but he was shocked at how many different shows, how many different stars and the histories of the stars' lives were a prominent discussion point for these people. So our culture provides more than enough distractions to keep us from turning inside and doing the work that'll actually improve the quality of our lives. So that's one other reason we're grateful for anybody who tunes into this show, to check out the website at www.whyagain.org, to click on the red and white bullseye or the link in the upper left-hand corner of most pages that says Start Here, and download Chapter 24 of Dr. Rice's book and read it, and download the latest version of the 7-step worksheet process and start filling it out. And if you see wonderful changes in your life, call us at 563-999-3581 to share that. And if you don't, call us at that number, 563-999-3581, and press 1 and ask for support. Because if you pick up this tool and you use it and you don't get results, it's probably not a matter that the tool isn't working. It's probably a matter of my needing to get more educated about the process and practice it. And that's why we're here. We're here to answer questions. We're here to support people in using these tools. We're here to support people in growing their facility with using these tools and applying them in different situations in their life. And there is an app that's available for your smartphone that's completely free. And it costs plenty of money and time for Michael and Jeannie to make that available. And yet they're making it available for free. So we like to mention, if you're benefiting from the tools, please consider donating, whether it's money if you have enough money to donate, or it's time sharing the work with others, or it's a special skill set that might help maintain Heartland or any one of the projects that Michael and Jeannie pursue. And you can hit the donate button on the website, or you can email Jeannie at jeanie@whyagain.org. So here we are pretty early in the show. Someone's put a hand up, area code 828. You're in the air.
I just unmuted this time. Isn't that nice? Hi, this is Magda.
Hello, Magda. How can we support you?
Well, I'm calling in to give you some feedback. First of all, for any of the other listeners, I totally agree with you that we need to make, I know you just said it, and I'm finding the same thing, that I need to make sure that I have the use of these tools, the worksheet and other tools, planned into my day. And for myself, it works out extremely well if it's one of the very first things in my day. Chuck and I were in the habit of doing a meditation first and then doing our worksheets after that. And we've gotten out of that habit. So that's one that I want to reinstill, because I've been doing worksheets at 1 o'clock in the morning and falling asleep on them. So yeah, it's very, very important to plan it, to make sure that it happens on a regular basis. And then life just gets easier and easier. And so that was one point. And then I want to also give you some feedback from the last time I talked with you. And in our conversation, you brought up the issue of shame. Remember, I was afraid to die because people would finally see what my office looks like? Do you remember that conversation? Whoops. Are you there? have we
I'm
dropped?
here. I'm here, and I do remember.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, it was interesting that the word shame, it was just a word that you mentioned in our conversation, and it really stuck with me, and I realized later that I have never related to that word. When people talk about shame, I just have not seen that as part of any of my emotional issues. But later that day, I did a breathing session with the folks who were over at Heartland. I did it here at home at the same time. And it was most remarkable because I asked Ruka Takucha, to help me to let go of anything that needed to be removed, and if there was any shame, to let me let go of that. And I had a breathing session that like no other I've ever had. I was conscious of when I went into still point and conscious when I came out of still point. Because most of the times in the past, it would be like falling asleep and then waking up. This was different. And during those times that I was in still point, and even in between, I had these images from all different times in my life, from very early age on up to recent times, in which I felt shame, ashamed, and even shame for someone else. It was a major, major cleansing. So I thank you for putting that word in there wherever you did, whatever sentence it was. I was definitely ready to hear it and to feel it.
Well, you're entirely welcome and deserving. And as I pointed out to you in that last call, it was simply your willingness and your honesty that provided those results, because you came right out and said, the first thing or two that I had mentioned in terms of a mind shifter did not hit the mark. And then you came out and said, here's the thing that really hits the mark.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That was the idea of the mess that you don't want people to see.
Right. And I think it really shows the incredible value of having a support system. And, when we have our support groups here once a week, we do that for and with each other. And the fact that you and Michael and Jeannie and Michelle have created this in, 8 years now, to be an ongoing support system is marvelous.
Well, we're very grateful that you're enjoying it and that you think it's marvelous, and that's why we keep doing it, because it is a benefit to us, and we think it's a great benefit to others.
Yeah,
and it's the kind of thing where we, all of us, each of us individually, do not get to see all the fruits of our labors. I just flashed on the thought about that movie, It's a Wonderful Life, where there's a whole movie about that statement I just made. We don't get to see all of the ways that our choices in life are affecting others positively or negatively. But the fact is, to be alive is to be in a community, to share the energy of creation, whether we're conscious of it or not. And so it makes really good sense to me to continue to work to become more and more conscious and to make choices that have a better chance of being a positive impact on others. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but that's not up to me to decide. Mine is just to do my best in each interaction.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very grateful that you're finding it useful, and I'm here to congratulate you for your honesty, which is what really provides the benefits for you in any of this work.
So true. And when we can be that honest with ourselves using the privacy of the worksheet, it's quite amazing what comes up. It really is. However, I think you understand that what I said before about the value of the support that you and this 2-hour program gives is the interactions. I had the honesty. I was ready with that. And I needed to bounce off of something. And you had the sentences I bounced off of when I said, oh, no, but you know what really is happening and what I'm thinking is. That's because you were there. You were a partner with me in that. So that is the value of this incredible program, because there are so many people who learn about this wonderful work and the tools and don't have a support group around them and are perhaps too timid to start their own or whatever. But having this radio program is a tremendous support. So you probably got that right.
I'm very glad that you think so and that it's of value. That's the point of us doing it. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well,
have you yet taken pictures of and shown everybody you know your big mess at home?
I have not yet gotten to that point. I'm still working on the forgiveness sheets, the wake up sheets that came out of the mind shifter, about being very happy when everybody, when I die and everybody sees this stuff. So I was just thinking about it last night. I need to start taking some pictures and selectively showing them to other folks, and I'm going to watch their reactions. I've been doing a lot of worksheets around that, about how important other people's reactions are, which is, of course, the only reason it bothers me. The thought of it bothers me is because I place too much importance, that I place any importance on other people's opinions, and I have been all my life. So this is going to be a great trial. And that one,
well, yeah.
And at the same, I have to say, I'm I'm very unhappy that you gave me that suggestion, and I'm very happy that you gave me that suggestion.
Well, and here's the thing about it, that you can get a tremendous amount of work done even if you never implement the suggestion. You can simply do the worksheets around how you're unhappy at the thought of it, or how it generates fear.
Mm-hmm.
You can say to yourself, tomorrow I'm going to do that. Later this afternoon I'm going to do that. Right? And then if you don't do it, you can just start doing the worksheets on what's coming up that's blocking you from doing it.
Mhm. Excellent. I like it. Okay.
So it isn't that, in order to make any progress, you actually have to take those pictures and start showing people. Because this has nothing to do with those other people. This has only to do, always, ever, and only to do with what's going on inside your mind and your body's energy system.
Correct. Yep. Good. Well, that's a great suggestion. I think that will, I feel freer to move forward utilizing that.
It's really important to understand that's not what you need to do to get free.
Mm-hmm.
Just the thoughts about it and the emotions you generate. Just get more clear about those and do the individual worksheets on that process, and therein lies the next step on the path, and the path will be shown to you.
Mhm. Yes. Yeah, I see that perfectly. Great. Okay, I'm
All right.
excited.
All right. Well, thank you for the
So
call. Is there
I
anything
will
else we can do to support you today?
not right now, Dr. Tim.
All
I
right.
will mute and I will listen and thank you again. Have a blessed
Oh, you're
day.
entirely welcome. Thank you. Take care.
You too.
So 563-999-3581. We had somebody else put a hand up. This is area code 423. You're in the air.
Hi, Tim, and hello, Magda, and welcome to this thing. I'm Jack, and I'm in Nashville, North Carolina. And thank you, Tim, and particularly thank Jeannie and Michael and some other people that have helped bring this to me. I'm just being enthusiastic, wanted to say hello and say all of this is working, but I've got a lot more work to do because every day I get a little tidbit or maybe a big tidbit or maybe a whole bunch of little tips from you or big tips from you that say there's more I can do and more I can do, but I'm so glad that I'm me and not the illusion of I. And also, a quick thing about Lost in Translation. In the language of the Dalai Lama, there is no word for shame, no concept for shame. Kind of interesting, isn't that? Anyway, that's my little tidbit for today, and I thank you for being here, and I'm just going to be listening today because I have a 2 o'clock appointment with an old friend just to give him support. Bye for now.
All right. Thank you, Jack. Thanks for listening, and we're glad it's useful. And we have maybe 35 minutes left of the show, so we can entertain another question, another comment, a suggestion of a topic. 563-999-3581. If you press 1, and the technology will let me know, and they'll put a little question mark up by your phone number, and I'll announce you by your area code. How can we support you? What comments or questions might you have about Magda's call and the work she's doing? And or any aspect of the last 8.5 years of shows and the work that's available at whyagain.org. And the host of worksheets and tools that are available to help us bring levels of our consciousness to conscious awareness where it might have been for some time now that we're hiding it from ourselves. And those tools I'm referring to are things like the 3 early memories of conflict, tools like the mind shifter, targeted journaling, tools like the codependent to interdependence worksheet. I was talking about that last week and talking about how powerful that can be to help me understand that every time I give somebody advice, while it might be a good piece of advice for them, it's the perfect advice for me. And if I will simply take the time to run through that exercise and several of the others, I can actually become, or let the tool become, a coach for me. And Magda was talking about how she found the benefit in the community and the feedback that she got from me the last time she called. And I'm agreeing with her that that is a tremendous benefit. That's why we're doing these shows. And Michael and Jeannie are also maintaining the website and constantly adding things to it so that people who don't have access to a community, they can't afford, or they can't travel to the intensive center, or they can't locate a mind shifter support group near them, or they don't feel competent to start their own, that those people can get access to these tools, and in applying these tools, the tools themselves become my support. Michael Rice likes to talk about people keeping their worksheets, the reality management worksheets that they do, and keep them in binders and go back and read them from time to time. And he says it's going to be your best coach. It's going to be your best friend. It's going to be the wealth of information for you about where you need more work, and it's going to be the reminder to you to help you combat the ego when the ego wants to say, oh, this stuff doesn't work. Oh, you've been doing worksheets for 3 years now and you still have anger, so there's no point in doing a worksheet on your anger. But if you have saved your worksheets from years ago and you go back and look at some of them for a very similar situation, you might realize that, you know what, 3 years ago when I was doing a worksheet on this anger that somebody cut me off in traffic, my upset level was, 118 on a scale of 1 to 10. And now somebody cut me off in traffic and my upset level is only a 6 out of 10. So the history of my work that can be found in the worksheet process, in the archives of my own worksheet process, can serve as the balance to the ego that wants to run away and hide and wants to pretend that nothing is going to work to change the false life, the illusion of reality that it has created. So all of the tools, every one has been crafted, has been refined, has been massaged over the years to do two primary things. One is to help me discover what I'm hiding in my consciousness, in my experience of life and my conclusions and my traumatic energy downloads to help uncover that. And the second thing is to learn to see them all the way to their core, to see them with that radical honesty, to see how they are interwoven into the false pictures my mind shows me about myself and the world around me. And once I see the truth of it, as Krishnamurti says, it just dissolves. There is no need to ask, what do I do now? Because when I recognize that what I thought was creating my anger or my fear or my sadness is false, I don't need to say, well, now what do I do? The example that came to me a few weeks ago on the Tuesday support group was, so, if I'm somewhere in a building at nightfall, it's completely dark, and there's very limited lighting because the power's gone out. And I walk into a room, and there is what seems to me to be a person in that room. And it just startles me because, I'm thinking no one's supposed to be here but me, and it's completely dark, and, my heart starts racing, and I grab for something to try and defend myself, or I slam the door and run out. I have this complete, immediate response in my physiology, in my endocrine system, in my respiration, and my heart rate, because I draw the conclusion and I put the interpretation on the shadows I saw that there's a person in that room and there's not supposed to be another person here. So I go and get a fellow coworker, and my heart's still racing, and maybe I've got a baseball bat as protection, and we go back in that room with a flashlight, and we throw the door open and shine the flashlight, and we end up, what I'm seeing when the light of the flashlight is pointed at it is, it's a mop head that's sitting in a bucket. The handle is pointed down and the mop head is up so it could drain, and it's not a person, it's a mop. Well, now I don't have to ask, how do I restore myself to calm? My body just starts calming down. When the truth of the situation is seen, this is the root of that quote from A Course in Miracles where it says, all you need do is return to the original error in thought in order that all of the negative effects of that thought be dismantled. Because when I see clearly, what I understand is I'm completely safe and whole and complete in each new present moment. There's nothing that needs to be defended about my situation. There's nothing that needs to be added to me to make me of value. There's nothing that can be taken from me to destroy my value. And when I step into that awareness, it dissolves any thoughts or any impulse within me that I need to change something or defend something or run away from someone. And it's an automatic process. It's like taking another breath. It has nothing to do with blasting things away. It has nothing to do with needing to apply elbow grease. And so one of the most powerful patterns when you listen to Krishnamurti giving advice to people is he'll give this wonderful explanation of the need to just observe and gently observe, and people will follow him and follow him and follow him, and all of a sudden they'll interrupt the process. They'll stop the observation and they'll jump into the question of, but then what do I do? And he, as gently as possible, tries to let them know that what they just did was interrupt the process of observation and jump back into the old fear-based mind and the thoughts which are creating the fear, and they've dropped out of observation, they've dropped out of active participation in their life, and they've stepped into the fear defense mode. And now they want to try and figure it out. But as Krishnamurti and David Bohm like to point out to us, when I do that, I'm engaging in a process that creates more pain. And as I engage in the process that creates more pain, and then I say, I don't like the pain, let me fix it, and I pick up the very same tool that created the pain and keep applying it. So we're inviting people in this work to recognize what Guy Finley lets us know, which is our mind is what's causing our pain. And my mind is the only thing that can quiet itself. And the only time that happens is when it realizes that it's the source of my problem, not the solution to it. It's been a long time since I brought up this book, but there's a book titled Leadership and Self-Deception. And in the preface to that book, this is a book that's trying to take tools like what Michael and Jeannie teach at whyagain.org into the corporate environment. And the first couple paragraphs are quite telling. It says, for too long, the issue of self-deception has been the realm of deep thinking philosophers, academics, and scholars as they work on the central questions of the human sciences. While that happens, the public remains generally unaware of this issue. Now, that would be okay, except for the fact that self-deception is so pervasive that it touches every aspect of life. Here, touches might be too gentle a word to describe its influence. Self-deception actually creates, determines the nature of one's influence on and the experience of others. And so self-deception is the subject of this book. To give you an idea of what's at stake, consider the following analogy. An infant is learning how to crawl. She begins by pushing herself backward around the house. Backing herself around, she gets lodged beneath the furniture. There, she thrashes about, crying and banging her little head against the sides and undersides of the pieces. She is stuck and she hates it. So she does the only thing she can think of to get herself out. She pushes even harder, which only worsens her problem. She gets more stuck than ever. If this infant could talk, she would blame the furniture for her troubles. After all, she's doing everything she can think of. The problem couldn't be hers. But of course, the problem is hers even though she can't see it. While it's true that she's doing everything she can think of, her problem is precisely that she cannot see how she is the problem. Having the problem she has, nothing she can think of will be a solution. This is the trap for us of the egoic mind of trying to figure it out. It goes on to say, self-deception is like this. It blinds us to the true causes of problems. And once we're blind, all the solutions we can think of will actually just make matters worse. Whether at work or at home, self-deception obscures the truth about ourselves. It corrupts our view of others and our circumstances, and inhibits our ability to make wise and helpful decisions. To whatever extent we are self-deceived, both our happiness and our leadership ability are undermined at every turn. And it's not because of the furniture. It's not because of what the other person is saying or doing. It's not because I can't figure it out. It's because I keep using the tool that created the problem in an effort to end the problem. And that will never work. That's sustained incoherence. That's blockage of truth in Dr. Michael Rice's terms. Once I decide that I need to be right in an argument, I'm lost. I have lost the argument and I'm lost as a person. So that book is Leadership and Self-Deception. It was published in 2002, a paperback edition anyway. And it has some slightly different ways to talk about the very thing that we talk about on this show and in our support groups and on this radio show and at whyagain.org and at mindshiftersacademy.org. So if you've got questions for us, comments, you can email Jeannie at whyagain.org. You can email me at tjh@mindshifters-academy.org. You can call in at 563-999-3581 and press 1. And we'll have a conversation. How can we support you? What are your thoughts? What are your comments? What's your answers? I had somebody in my office earlier spending a tremendous amount of time talking about their partner. And since it was fairly early on in our therapy relationship, I let him talk about his partner for about 20, 25 minutes. And then I interrupted him and I said, I want you to pay attention to the fact that there's only you and I in this room. And you're the only one that you can change. And you just spent 25 minutes talking to me about things you have no control over. So let's slow down. Let's review some of the situations you just talked about, but let's put a different lens on it. Let's put on the lens of what do you do in each of these situations? And how is it that what you're doing in each of these situations might be similar to what you've done dozens of times in the past in similar situations? That's what we're trying to do here. we're trying to introduce people to a level of observation and a set of tools that's unlike any that I've encountered any other place for their accessibility, their effectiveness, their simplicity. And there are other tools, as I've mentioned. There is Ho'oponopono. There is Byron Katie's work. There's the Sedona release method. There is the work of the Christian Science and what Mary Baker Eddy talked about. There is the book, As a Man Thinketh. There is the book, The Impersonal Life by Joseph S. Benner. We read another chapter of that last night in our Thursday support group. And what we're concerned with in this work is simply getting people to understand that there are options, that they are creating their experience of life in each new present moment. And that every one of us that chooses to accept our role in creating our anger, our fear, our sadness, our pain, our guilt, our shame, contributes a different, more loving, more productive energy to the world at large, and you make the world a better place. And you make the world a better place one worksheet at a time, one breath session at a time, one targeted journaling, mind shifter session at a time. So our call-in number is 563-999-3581. And press 1 and we'll do our best to answer your question or share your comment. I'm going to mute for just a moment and take a drink, clear my throat. So I remember talking about this book, Leadership and Self-Deception, and that group, the Arbinger Institute, published another book after it called The Anatomy of Peace. And so if you're looking for a way to bring these same kinds of tools to people and you don't want to talk so much about what might be construed as religion or Christianity, you might want to take a read of either the book Leadership and Self-Deception or the book The Anatomy of Peace. So we have, hopefully in the not too distant future, we're going to have Mitzi Montague Bauer agree to an interview about her book, Journey, A Mother's Account of Love, Loss, and Transformation. And hopefully not too long after that, or perhaps even before that, we'll get Jeannie Rice to agree to an interview about her book, Healing the Generations One Breath at a Time, I think is the title that she told us about. And I want to just take a moment to recommend that you take a look at those books and or send me the title of a book that you've been thoroughly touched by and or an author that you think would be a very good interview for this show, something compatible with these tools. And you can send me your suggestions at tjh@mindshifters-academy.org. And I will do my best to review those books and reach out to those speakers or authors and see if we can't expand the knowledge base and perspectives from which we are looking at the very same tools. The other day I had somebody say something that triggered memory of the book, Butterflies Are Free to Fly. And this is another book that, for those of you who are, looking to do something other than sit in front of the television set or reach for whatever your drug of choice is, Butterflies Are Free to Fly is a book that was written by someone who is a spiritual seeker, and it was put out and made available through the internet as a PDF, absolutely free. And he says you can do whatever you want with it as long as you don't try and make money from it. So, it's another one of those people who has done his own personal work and is in the process of learning and just wants to share, just like Michael and Jeannie. And committed to helping people look at their situation from a new perspective, start to live more in the question, start to do more living by direct observation. And in the beginning of that book, he talks about basically he updates Plato's allegory of the cave. Now, there are a lot of people who know about Plato's allegory of the cave, and there's a lot more people that don't. So I'm trying to think of a quick, simple way to talk about it. The idea of the allegory of the cave is that there are people who have been raised their entire life in a cave, tied down to chairs, staring at a wall. And behind them, and their whole life, all they've ever known is whatever shadows appear on the wall and whatever noises they hear echoing through the cave. And the issue is that what they don't know is that behind them in the cave is a walkway. And on the other side of the walkway, there's a fire burning. And the light from the fire burning. And the light from the fire, combined with the people walking on the walkway, create shadows. It creates what would be the equivalent of our modern day movie projector projecting images onto the wall of the cave. And that's their entire reality for their whole life. So they are living their life basically relating to a hallucination, just shadows and echoes. And one day, one of the people who's there gets loose and gets up and walks around and discovers the truth that there is a walkway behind them and a fire and a life outside the cave. And he comes back to tell those people who are strapped down in these chairs, and they don't want to hear it. And they get angry at him because he's trying to tell them that their world, everything they've ever known, is false. And so they attack him. And that's the story, that's the allegory of the cave. Now, the issue is most of us who live our lives are paying attention to what the culture teaches us. You need to go to school, you need to get a job, you need to marry and have kids, you need to stay in line, you need to be a Democrat or a Republican, you need to hate this other country that we're at war with, and most of us are living in that complete hallucination and illusion of what the culture teaches us without ever questioning it at a deep level. So he updates that allegory of the cave, and he says, it's a movie theater in our current time. and people are strapped into the movie theater chairs, and their head is strapped in so they can't turn around and look behind them, and all they've ever seen is what's projected on the screen. His intro to that chapter is a quote by Dr. Amit Goswami. And the quote is, "This is the only radical thinking that you need to do. But it is so radical, it is so difficult, because our tendency is that the world is already, quote, out there, close quotes, independent of my experience. The fact is, it is not. And quantum physics has been so clear about that. The world is not out there. The world you see," this is a quote from Guy Finley, "the world I see is the world in me, not the other way around." And when we apply the reality management worksheet when we're upset, whether we realize it or not, when we get a shift from anger to fear, or from anger to peace, or from fear to peace, or from fear to confusion, every time we get that as the result of the application of the reality management worksheet, we are demonstrating the proof that the world we see is the world in me. It's not outside of me. And the thing creating my experience is the interpretation that my mind places on those events and the mind energy that I pour into those interpretations, and nothing else. So our invitation is, go to whyagain.org, download the worksheet process, download the host of other worksheets, get yourself a mind shifter and write on it for a few hours. Fill out the codependent to interdependence worksheet and figure out the very best advice for how to improve the quality of your life is going to be right there on the page that you're giving to everybody else that you think has ever offended you. It's going to be the perfect advice for your life to improve your life. Get yourself a copy of the 3 early memories of conflict, work that out, and discover for yourself how you've been trapped living the same unproductive pattern in your own mental machinations for the past number of decades of your life, when you thought you were awake and alert and a competent adult meeting life new and fresh each day. And the truth is, most of us have lived the first 5 years of our life over and over and over and over and over again, ad infinitum. And it was quite a shock to my system when I did that worksheet several different times and realized, oh my gosh, the way I responded to things when I was in college is exactly what I learned to do when I was 8 years old and this trauma happened. The way I've responded to things in graduate school is rooted in the way I did things when I was 12 years old and this traumatic event happened. As we like to talk about in this work, I can't fix any of those patterns unless I become aware of them. Awareness is the key. Awareness is the light that I shine on these issues. And it is the light that reveals to me that the dangerous stranger who's lurking in the room that's locked, it's dark and they shouldn't be there, is really just a mop turned upside down sitting in a bucket. Every fear I've ever had that my mind played out past the original event was every bit as false as my belief that an upside down mop in a bucket was a dangerous person. I love the way we've had so many wonderful calls over the years, and the people have done powerful work, and sometimes they say, oh man, that was really risky, that was really scary. And we like to point out to them, you know what? It wasn't risky. You just talked about the tremendous benefits you had from it. So it's only the part of your mind that we call the ego, or that Guy Finley would call that mechanical level of consciousness, that wants me to believe that it's scary to share on the internet show, or to do my own personal work, or to be a whole new, deeper, radical level of honesty in my approach to my issues. It isn't dangerous or risky. And the proof of that is in how many people call the show or share in the support groups and get tremendous benefits from doing a worksheet process, from doing the mind shifter process, from calling and getting input like Magda has the last couple of times, and getting the benefit of alternative perspectives on my situation is anything but risky. It pays huge positive benefits and dividends every time I step into doing it. And when my mind wants to tell me it's dangerous or risky, that is the error. That is the hallucination. That's the false appearing real. That's one of the acronyms for fear that so many people like. FEAR, false evidence appearing real. So all psychological and emotional pain, Guy Finley would say, is the result of some aspect of my mind wanting to live on after the fact. The startle response that happens if I walk into a room and I think there's a person in there that doesn't belong there, it's just a natural startle response. It's part of that lower level of mechanical consciousness that developed to try and keep me safe in a physical world where there were lots of predators. But every thought I have about that after the fact is ego, is a lie, is a hallucination. And I see that Jeannie has joined us. Welcome, Jeannie.
Thank you. I've been listening. I've had it on hands-free so that I could hear it while I was playing with the baby here, and it's been a good show. I've made a note of the books that you've suggested. I don't think I've read any of those.
Well, I read that intro a number of years before, and we put it in the archives in the notes section, and they're just, it's not as step by step to the point as the reality management worksheet and some of the other tools, but it's very, very much in line with the same principles of observation about each of us creating our own emotional upset and our own problems. And it's worded in a way that's a little bit more palatable for the corporate environment.
Yeah.
So what's new in your young life?
It has been busy. My dad's given me a whole task of things to do between now and tomorrow. So that'll keep me busy too. But anyway, he's doing well. Baby's doing well. And I am just keeping up with them. But anyway. And yes, one of these days I will do an interview. I couldn't get to the phone and reply to you when you mentioned that.
Well, and I'd be happy to do it any old time. You don't have to wait until the book's done. You can, whenever you're comfortable with it. What you were sharing the other day is there's clearly plenty that's there already that would be a blessing to share. So. Yeah.
Okay. I'll be glad to. Let's make it a Tuesday or Thursday so that I have hands free here. I have the baby on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So
all right.
We'll have to. All right. Perfect. Well, we're in the second hour. Man, time flies.
Yep. Well, I will hang up so that Michael can join us, and I will call back in as time allows.
All right, great.
All right.
Thank you.
Blessings.
Thanks. So today is Friday, July the 12th, 2019, and our call-in number is 563-999-3581. Press 1, and that puts you in queue to talk to us. And we would love to hear your comments and your questions, because that makes this your show. And so while we're waiting on Michael to call in, I'll just direct you to our website, which is www.whyagain.org. And you can click on the bullseye in the middle of the page or start here in the upper left corner. Both of those will take you to the same place, and it's where you'll find all of our worksheets. You'll find Chapter 24 of Michael's book. There's worksheets, not just the reality management worksheets. There's about 30 of those out there. But then there's also all the worksheets for codependence, for relationships. There's the commitments. If there's any worksheets or posters or anything that you have heard Michael talk about and you can't find it on the website, let me know, and I'll make sure that it is out there. The little search bar that's on our website does real well if you just put in a part of what you're looking for, and then it'll give you a list. And so let me know if you ever run into a link that doesn't work, or if there's something you can't find. And a couple of people listen to the archives all the time, and they're letting me know if one of them's not working for some reason, if there's a link that's off or something. So I do appreciate being informed of what's going on the site, because it's thousands of pages. And so keeping up with every page and making sure that every link stays connected. You know, sometimes I have links to other websites, and if they change their link or their landing page or something, then it messes up the link on their website as well. So definitely keep me informed if you run into anything like that. And welcome, Michael.
Well, thank you, dear
Hello,
heart.
Michael.
Welcome, everybody. Hey, how are you, sweetie? Hello? Gee.
Yeah, the baby just took a tumble, so I dropped the phone to pick her up.
Oh, bless her heart. Is she okay?
Yeah, she didn't even cry.
She's made of rubber. She's made of rubber.
Yeah, just saying.
So welcome, everyone. We're honored and delighted that you're here with us. It's such a privilege to get to share these tools, to get to engage in these tools, to carry these tools forward and make them available to every mind, heart, and being on the planet. I did get an email from one of our participants in the summer's intensives, and I just thought I would share it with you. And she titled it 40-Day Wilderness Results. 11 pounds less weight, dropped 10 points on the upper number of blood pressure, confidence, and enthusiasm. Just real simple, straightforward. Here's what I got. So nice work. And that's, the kind of thing we just appreciate getting to watch people go through and come out the other side, and all the things that move. And it's pretty awesome when people take these tools and really, truly put them to work, seriously apply them, and see the serious changes that happen in their lives. And of course, get to play and get to participate in all those results, and that's pretty awesome too. And so, Jeannie, do we have anybody out there with a hand up in the phone queue?
No, we do not. And Lightness, welcome to the chat room. I haven't had a chance to even type in there and say, hey, I'm here. We just had a hand go up, and I believe that this is Jack in Asheville.
Yes.
Are you still
Jack.
on from Dr. T, or did you push again?
This is Jack. Jack in Asheville. I just want to say thank you to all of you, particularly Jeannie. You are the essence of love and wisdom, and you help that guy called Michael get through in the world. And, of course, Tim is the guy that got to explain to me, and I'm just wonderfully enthusiastic and beginning to scratch deeper in the surface of my life, thanks to you people. And I'll make a donation as soon as I have some money. Thank you, and I pass.
Well, it's
awesome.
We're delighted to be creating that support. And, Jack, I'm looking at having a conversation with Unity there in Asheville. And so perhaps sometime in the next couple of months, we might be down there doing a full week of workshops. So keep an eye or keep an ear to see if that happens. And if we come doing a free workshops Monday or Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So hope you'll be there to play if we make it.
Thank you.
Honored and delighted. And so we are, Patrick and Ari and I are working on getting Heartland all closed up for the season. Getting ready to get on the road and head to Kansas City. Spend a few days with Michael J. there, my son, and a few days in St. Louis. And then back home to my sweetie, which I'm really looking forward to, seeing and hugging both of you. And, of course, our work is the work of first century Aramaic Forgiveness. Nothing whatsoever that relates to forgiveness as the world talks about it. The culture gives us this totally false piece of information that says that somebody else is responsible for what's going on in my life, and I should be blaming them and convincing them that something's wrong with them and what they need to do to get fixed so that I don't have to be in pain. It's interesting, ran across a quote yesterday of Gandhi, and it kind of ties into a conversation we had a couple of days ago with Roma, where Gandhi says, "The enemy is fear. We think it is hate, but it is fear." And the world gives substance to fear as though fear were something present. And it's a trick of the mind to believe that fear is something present. All that fear is an absence of love. When you fill in the space where fear exists, in all its many forms, and as Gandhi says, it sometimes looks like hate, then what happens, because it is an absence, the space is filled with the presence of love, and the con game is over. Now, for some, it might only be over for a fraction of a second. For others, it might be over for a minute or two. There comes a point where it will be over for a lifetime for each of us, when we really, truly tap into who we are and how we have been taught to avoid the presence of who we really are as love. And, of course, the best definition I have, because lots of people will say, well, what is love? Tell me what that is. I couldn't, if I accumulated all the words from all the languages on the planet that have described love, we still would not have the experience of love or know what it is. Kind of like, last night we had a little community gathering, a little potluck, and watched a movie. And one young lady brought a chocolate cheesecake. Now, if you've never tasted a chocolate cheesecake, I could accumulate all the words in the world and every language of the world to describe the taste of a chocolate cheesecake, and you wouldn't have a clue what it tastes like till you put that morsel in your mouth. Well, if you have lost contact with the essence of who you are as love, and the best way I've found to describe love is simply to ask people to go back to the moment where they held a newborn child. And if you haven't done that, go find a newborn to hold. If you're in a city, There are lots of places where they've got newborns that have been abandoned, drug babies, fetal alcohol syndrome, and they're crying for people to come in and just touch and hold those babies. That's what holds love. That's what holds that being, that created essence in that little form until it can fully incarnate. So go find a newborn to hold. Be with that essence. Discover who you are. And forget about all the words the world could tell you about, because they're never going to capture it. And know that the absence of that state is fear and all its variations. And forgiveness is a tool which removes the energies that result in voiding the awareness of the presence of love, until love shines fully within physiology and you have that direct, full-blown experience. One of the exercises that we do in the intensive, and we have people, we make the request that you do a love exchange with everybody in the intensive every day, is to get quiet, close your eyes, tap into the presence of love in the best way you know, and intensify that experience, that energy. Open your eyes and send it to your partner. I invite you to go into that practice. I have a person who's become a friend over the years. Several years ago, we stayed at his home in Hawaii. As he sat on his deck, he was kind of a fairly significant businessman in the world, and decided he was going to get out of the rat race and quit, expecting the world to destroy itself. And we bantered back and forth about, Michael, why bother? You can't change this game. Well, he told me recently being probably a year ago now, that having moved back to the heartland, or to the mainland, because of the fog and the toxicity in the air in Hawaii, that what he does now from his front porch is just sit on the porch, watching people walk up and down the street and holding each of them in a space of love. Instead of escaping from the world, he's making a contribution to the world, bringing forth his own state of being to touch everyone he sees. What a gift to give. Very much like that interview that Dr. Tim did, which was so awesome, with Pierre Pradervin, the author of The Gentle Art of Blessing. So here he sits on his porch. It's what, 7 years ago, maybe 8 years ago, we were in Hawaii and sat there, and he's telling us in his cynicism how he's out of the world. He's finished. And now, what does he do? Just sits there and holds a space for people, beams love at them. What a different way of living. And the world has specialized in teaching us to cut off from the essence of our human lives, and then to function out of a brainwash program of self that, of course, is not self at all. So our work is that of deleting the things that void the awareness of the presence of love, and strengthening the presence of love, strengthening the presence of our created essence, and bringing it into our physiology by extending it and sharing it with the world. It's a powerful place to live, and a whole lot more fun than that game of chasing money, or all the stuff that people do, thinking that this is what life is about. So if that inspires any thoughts for you or any questions, our call-in number, if you are in the chat room or if you are in one of those stations we can't see, is 563-999-3581. If you have a thought or a question for us, if you call that number, you'll be listening to the show. And then if you push 1, through the magic of technology, a little hand goes up and Jeannie will introduce you by your area code. So Jeannie, do we have anybody out there with a hand up?
We do. Area code 702, you're on the air.
Good morning, Michael and Jeannie.
Well, I haven't heard your voice in a long time. Welcome. Good to hear you. How are you? What's happening
it's good to
out
hear
there
you.
in Pahrump?
Michael, everything is just as you would expect it. Claude and I continue to do our work and continue to share it with anybody who wants to participate on Friday nights in Pahrump. Our group is strong. There are people who come and go, but clearly that the messages that you taught, Claudia and myself, we're continuing to teach and to promote to other people, and they're incorporating it into their lives. So I'm sure that you know that. I'm sure that you've always known that, but just to confirm that with you and Jeannie, that we continue to do what you've asked us to do, and we ask all people to participate in the same thought process.
Well, Stephen, I've gotten more calls from people acknowledging the work that you've introduced them to and that you've saved their lives with it than anybody else on the planet. I've gotten more calls literally from people who've said, with the work, you've saved their lives. So I'm just honored and delighted that you picked it up, and in your medical office, you use it and you share it and you keep putting it out there. It's pretty awesome. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, and Jeannie, and thank everybody for supporting. And it's what you inspired us to do is that we continue to do our work and continue to share it, and that's what promotes everything across not only Pahrump, but across the United States and the globe and the universe. So it's we're all doing our part, and we're all part of it.
Sweet.
And
well, what else
I'm
is exciting
unaware
in your
of
world these days?
Well, I'm unaware of those people that have called. I don't get to listen to the radio. I'm sort of late today, so I was able to tune in. But I'm unaware of those phone calls. But I'm glad that I always ask people to call and to give you the respect that you deserve for being bold to define the practice that you teach, and to have been patient enough to teach us how to do it, and we're doing it for them. But I'm unaware of those messages, so I'm glad that they are communicating back to you. As for me,
sure.
Okay, wonderful. It's truly remarkable, and just probably the distillation is that it's never over. Claudia and I have to continue to do our work. Anybody else whose life has been saved has to continue to do their work, because it's never an end point in the whole process. It's the willingness to continue and to always go back and to continue to learn and to practice and to do the work. So what else is going on? I continue to be very busy. I continue to help people through their addiction processes, and anybody else who is interested. We've had a wonderful progression of a young lady. I think she started at 12 or 13, and she's been attending Friday night support group for years now. And she just tells me her life has changed, and she's a completely different person. And it's just wonderful to have her in our presence, because everybody's around the table says, I wish I would have learned this at your age, because it put her onto a whole different track. And we've had 80-year-old people that have just transformed. We have some people that are slower, but as long as they continue to show up and to participate, that they always have that chance to learn and to do something different, to think differently.
It is a process for sure, and it does take some time.
But we're continuing to do it.
Stephen.
We never expect to stop. We expect to have people to continue to promote this, the message in Pahrump and other places. One of our wonderful ladies that participated, we encouraged her to start a support group in Phoenix. She wasn't really sure how to do that, but we encouraged her to take that to Phoenix and start her own recovery and support group. So if anybody moves out of town, we give them full support to take it someplace else in the United States.
Awesome, and there is a lot of information on the website that Jeannie's accumulated, her experiences starting a support group and others' experiences. So there's lots of information for supporting people to get one going. That's awesome.
That's good to know, and we'll continue to refer people to that. Michael and Jeannie, it's a pleasure. I have to go help people in a different way, but I continue to take the message that I learned in Heartland and with all the time that I spent with you in my life, because I need to continue to share what I've learned and taking the responsibility for my thoughts and my actions onto every person that I reach every day. So it's not just a support group; it's a way of thinking and a way of being.
That's awesome, Dr. Stephen. And that's our littlest co-host you're hearing in the background, Ari Rain, who's now been circling the planet for 11 months. Go ahead, Junie.
I was just going to say, Stephen, I follow you all on Facebook, and the Desert Bloom Echo Farm is phenomenal how it has just blossomed and grown, and I wish I was there to have dinner. Claudia puts pictures on and says, dinner out of the garden, and it's just like, wow.
I think that that's the metaphor that, you can grow things in the desert. You can transform a barren area into a beautiful area. And I think that's the metaphor for everybody as they come into this life with all the trauma and drama of their childhood, that they can transform that as well. So we're doing it for the desert, and we encourage everybody to do it for themselves as well. And you're welcome, of course, anytime. Heartland West.
Sweet. Right. Well, anybody who wants to connect with Dr. Stephen and Claudia Andraki, if you go to Desert Bloom Farms, that's the name of the Facebook page, Stephen?
Desert Bloom Eco Farms, that's right.
Farm, and I put a link in today's notes to it.
Sweet. Sweet. Well, give that young lady a hug for us. We appreciate her deeply.
Okay. Take care, Michael and Jeannie.
All right. Lots of love and blessings.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for the call. So nice to hear your voice. Call more often. It's been 2 years.
I know, Michael. We're always with your thoughts and always with you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All righty. Thanks for your support. Blessings. Bye-bye. Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, I think I've had at least 6 or 7 people over the last 8 or 10 years that have called me to thank me for the tools and inform me that Dr. Andraki and his medical practice has, in introducing these tools, saved their lives. So it's pretty awesome to watch that happen. What a privilege! What a privilege to get to engage and share these tools on a planet-wide scale. So, Jeannie, do we have anybody else out there with a hand up in the phone queue or anything happening in the chat room to be aware of?
No. Lightness is in the chat room with me. Nobody has a hand up. We've got 36 minutes, so if someone presses 1, you have no waiting.
Well, I'm going to assume that there are a few folks on there from the intensive series that we just finished.
Just went up.
Okay, let's say hello.
407, you're on the air.
I'm thoroughly enjoying the show, and
give us a name. Where are you calling from?
Sure. My name is Lori, and I'm calling from Central Florida.
Cool. Welcome. Good to hear your voice, Lori. How can we support you?
Yeah, I don't have any addiction problems or anything of that situation, but it seems that all of us have some kind of internal struggle.
Right.
And I don't know exactly why. I have been aspiring to be a recognized writer for close to 8 years, and
Right.
I have had numerous people in the same group that are constantly sabotaging my efforts and bringing it back to self. What have I done or what can I do to not place blame, but how do I get out from under this cloud? It's just an odd situation, very odd. I've never signed a contract with anybody. I put a lot of free writing out into the universe, and to my detriment, that has come back to bite me.
Well, are you familiar with the forgiveness process that we teach? Have you done any work with it?
I have, and I do. Mhm.
And have you engaged in the actual wake-up sheet?
Probably as much as I know how to do.
Okay.
I say the Ho'oponopono. I know very well about integrating prayer into your life. It really, really works. If you, honestly, from the Aramaic teachings, if you do pray for your enemies, they do feel that energy. I did it. I had an argument with my husband, and I started sending him love. He came home from work, and he was full of love for me. And I said, you know what? This stuff does work.
It does. So now, those people who've been trying to and working to sabotage you, or at least in your perceptual construct, they're sabotaging you. Have you worked on presencing love for them?
Not as much as I should. It's more than sabotage. They're monetizing themselves off of my name, my banner, and my writing. So it's concrete. It's out there. I've got like 20 DMCA notices, and Google backs me up because I did it through Google. I don't know how to process that, or what. How much more forgiveness can you give someone after 8 years? I mean, I want to know what I did to cause that, or how is that in the universe of I own something? How do other people not own the pain that they're causing me?
Well, so a starting point is to recognize, like, let's go back before all this started and quote, as you say, they started causing you pain. That's 8 years? So let's go back 9 years ago. This pain that you're talking about, is it a quality of pain that you knew 9 years ago?
Let me process that. No.
Or 10, 11, 12, 15?
Probably about okay, this is before all of this started taking place, right?
Right.
I was at a 50. My father had just passed away.
But my question is, the quality of pain that you're talking about, that they're quote unquote causing you, did you know that quality 9 years ago?
No.
That quality of pain?
No, because it's invasive.
Okay.
It's just constant phone hacking, constant computer hacking, constant rerouting of my computer, internet. It just, no, I've never known this kind of, it's like I'm a prisoner. It's like I'm under constant surveillance. I don't like windows open. I mean, my whole life has changed since this has been going on.
So it sounds like it's fear-based.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's go back to childhood. Any fear in your life?
Yeah, there was.
What was happening then? What took place in that childhood experience that you just acknowledged?
I love my parents dearly, but I do recognize now, as an adult, their foils, their faux pas. My mother is controlling, and that was always very, very much so a fear for me. And my father had a hot temper, and we didn't know when he was going to just go off like a firecracker. That was very fearful for me.
So you knew a pretty deep quality of fear in early childhood, and you're experiencing a pretty deep quality of fear now in this thing where you're talking about being imprisoned. So my offering would be that your job, should you choose to do it, is not to forgive them, nor to forgive your father or your mother or yourself, but rather to forgive as to your fear.
Mm-hmm.
Because as long as I hold an energy of unresolved fear in me,
Mm-hmm.
I literally, energetically, send out a signal, an energetic pattern
Mm-hmm.
that says, I need someone to come and bring forward this fear in me. And
Wow.
they will show up. And forgiveness isn't about letting anybody off the hook for that, but forgiveness is the tool that you apply to your fear
Mm-hmm.
to remove your fear so that you can come to a space of trust rather
Mm-hmm.
than fear. And my offering would be that if they've hacked you, if they've done all those things, none of that has caused, I'm acknowledging they've been doing that continuously, but my offering would be that none of that has caused you fear. To believe that that causes your fear is to live in denial. And and our definition in this work of denial is whenever I think or speak as though something outside of me is the cause of something inside of me, then I'm living in denial. And when I live in denial, what happens is I hide the part of me that's engaging in creating this fear, and now I can't get rid of it because it's not mine anymore. I really believe it's caused from the outside. So the forgiveness process is something that you apply literally to remove your fear.
Mm-hmm.
And as you remove your fear, then trust steps in. And when you start to send out, when the predominant resonant energy leaving your energy field is that of trust rather than that of fear, then what you will do is you will call forward people and behaviors that tap into trust rather than fear. And the example comes to share, and I'm not sure why this one, because it's kind of an extreme example, but this is the example that intuitively comes. Have you by chance ever seen the movie Hacksaw Ridge?
I vaguely remember it. I think so. The title sounds familiar.
Well, Hacksaw Ridge is a pretty heavy-duty movie. It's a true story about a young man back in World War II. He actually just passed away a year or two ago. They interviewed him live for the movie. But he had a pretty violent childhood and swore he would never harm anyone after having had the experience of almost killing his father and injuring his brother very badly. So as a young man, that was it. I will never pick up a weapon again. He almost shot his father, and I will never harm another. And World War II starts. He lives in a small town, and everybody's gung-ho, rah, we're going to go off and make war. Hey, let's kill commies. And so he's going to go off and do his part, but he informs the military when he signs up that he will not touch or use a weapon. And I guess his induction officer, I don't know, they get paid by how many recruits they get in, so they tell him, well, that's no problem, we'll make you a medic, and that'll be okay. Well, he gets in there, and of course they want him to pick up the rifle and do the training, and he just won't touch a gun. And he wants to be there. One of the lines he gives is they're trying to prosecute him and put him in prison for 10 years because he won't touch a gun. He delivers the line, with so many people out there killing each other, it doesn't seem so bad that I, one person, want to go out there and bring healing. And that's what he wants to do on the battlefield. So there's a very real battle in Japan on an actual hill that's called Hacksaw Ridge, or actually a cliff. And the Japanese have been there forever, so they're dug in foxholes, trenches, caves, and they are there. They're just totally pervade the space. And as his platoon is being sent into Hacksaw Ridge as a replacement, they see the soldiers from the platoon before coming out, and they're just shattered and destroyed. So they go up on this ridge, and they're so overwhelmed that they call off the attack. All of the tough guys with their guns and their tough talk and how no man left behind abandon their injured friends on the cliff and scramble down and get out of town, get out of the fire. This young man knows that there are many of his buddies there, his compatriots, and he's going to stay and get them off the ridge. When the sergeant or whoever it is gets down off of the ridge, he puts a call out to the battleship with the big 12-inch guns sitting just off the coast, and he informs them that they can't storm the ridge with human power because there's just too much firepower up there, too many Japanese. So they start an inferno. I mean, they've got these big guns, and they just pulverize this ridge. Now, if anybody was ever justified in saying, man, that scares me, that really causes me a lot of fear, this guy who decided to stay sitting up there, I mean, literally he's sitting in this hellfire inferno with not only the Japanese with their guns and their weapons and just murderous rage, but these big 12-inch guns pounding in, fire bombs, just, it's like an inferno. And in the middle of it, this guy sits on the ridge and says, God, what do you want me to do? And he listens with trust in his heart. He finally hears a man moan in pain. He goes into this fiery inferno. He gets up from where he's sitting behind a rock, goes over and takes this man and ties a rope around him and lowers him off the ridge. The tough guys down below see this man being lowered by a rope, and they're like, wait, how is this happening? What's going on here? And they go over and they untie him, and, gee, it's one of their buddies. Wow, he's saved. None of the tough guys go up on the ridge to help. But this man living in trust, time after time after time, walks into the middle of the inferno and pulls out another man. In some cases, the ones who beat him mercilessly earlier because he wouldn't touch a gun in training are the ones he saves. I forget exactly the number, but I believe it was 75 or 76 men that by hand he lowered down this, I don't know, maybe 200-foot ridge with a rope, burning his hands and all. 75 or 76 men. Not an instant of fear. Do you know why?
He had trust.
There was no fear in him. He had trust. There was no fear in him. When you forgive as to your fear, these people can do what they do, and you'll open your windows, and you'll have trust, and you'll be protected. There's a line in the scriptures where the Creator is speaking to us as human beings, and the Creator says to us, if you're in relationship with me, if you trust me, you can walk through a battlefield where 1,000 or 10,000 will die, and you can't be touched. I'd invite you to go to your phone's app store and type in the words Heartland Aramaic Forgiveness. You'll find the world's first forgiveness app on your app store. Download it and start to work with it, or go to our website, whyagain.org, and on the left-hand side, up at the very tippy top of the page, the word Start Here there. Click that link, and that link will lead you into a whole series of links on how to remove fear from your physiology and watch your life change.
Wow. Oh yeah. I know it. Wow. Thank you for
There's a
nodding.
governing. Oh, that's what we're here for. I'm delighted. There's a basic principle. My background's electronics with a side study in physics, and there's a basic physics principle of the world called resonance. And the law of resonance, simply stated, says this: when two energy fields are in tune or in resonance with each other, there's an exchange of information between them. You might remember in physics class in high school, they pulled out a middle C tuning fork and they hit it on a desk and they put it through near a second middle C tuning fork. And without being touched, that second tuning fork started to move.
Mm-hmm.
Transfer of energy through resonance creates motion, in something as simple as a tuning fork. If I had two baby grand pianos in the same room, and I went over and I really banged out a middle C on one of those baby grand pianos, and then opened the lid on the other piano, there are hundreds of strings in there, but only the strings associated with middle C are going to be moving in that second piano. It's called the law of resonance. Resonance creates motion. Now, one of those pianos isn't going to go and crawl up on top of the other piano. It creates motion, but in the human realm, resonance does an additional thing besides just motion. It creates motion toward. So if I hold in me an unresolved fear, fear is an energy. Energy by definition is motion, and everything that creates motion creates an energy wave. If I've got the middle C tuning fork in my hand and it's still, there's no motion, there's no energy wave coming from it. But when I hit it on the desk, bang, I create a motion in that tuning fork, and that motion sets up a field. Invisible field. You don't see one tuning fork sending a signal to the other and the other the other tuning fork responding. It's a totally invisible energy wave, but that second tuning fork starts to move. If I hold unresolved fear, and from what you're saying with Dad, I suspect it's probably a family power person dynamic, and Dad came by his fear or his anger and his rage honestly, and it was a cover for pain. And whoever gave that to him passed it on, and he gave the gift to you. Now that fear in you sets up, just like the tuning fork, an invisible energy. And if the tuning fork sends out the signal, if the mind energy inside of me that I'm signaling, that I'm sending out is, and I like to call it the creative wave or the psychic megaphone, that energy silently moving in me sets up a field, and the signal that goes out from that field says, hey world, I'm supposed to be attacked by somebody. I have this fear for a reason. Is there anybody who knows how to terrorize me? Somebody's going to start to move toward you as long as you hold that field in you.
Mm-hmm.
And what's going to move in them is the matching frequency, which is the ability to terrorize.
Wow.
As you forgive that energy in you, literally, and forgiveness is about the removal of energetic patterns that don't belong. As you forgive and remove that energy from you, guess what? There's no resonance left. There's no attraction to play that out anymore, and those people will just drop away and find somebody else to play with. And or with trust in the Creator, you'll be guided, and watch that movie Hacksaw Ridge. It's a pretty violent, war movie, but to me, the beauty, it's absolute beauty to watch that movie, because you get to see what a true human being does in the most vicious, vile, and vomiting circumstances that life can produce. It's really heavy duty, but you get to see what a human being, a real, honest-to-God human being connected to love, does in that kind of circumstance. And to me, it's poetry, it's beauty, and it's inspiring. Although violent part of it's pretty tough to watch. It definitely gives you an opportunity to breathe. But as you develop that kind of trust, your life's going to change.
I'm visualizing the movie now, and now that you've given me the summary, eloquently and beautifully articulated, I might add. I remember watching the movie with my husband, and him just saying, "Stop whatever you're doing. You have to watch this movie. It is beyond engaging. It is compelling." And
powerful.
I said, yeah. And we're of two totally different, polar opposite faiths, but that was nice to come together like that with the same heartfelt, spiritual. It was just, it was a profound movie. I remember seeing it for some reason in black and white. Does that make sense?
Well, I think it was color when it was made. It just came out probably 2 years ago or so. But I do have the thought come that with your writing skills, it would be cool, because I've never seen a review that reviews it from the point of view of, here's what a true human being would do in the most dire of circumstances. If you choose to write an article on that, I'd love to see it.
Yeah, it is. It's everybody's story. Basically, it's everybody's story. You can put yourself on either side, but it's everybody's story made for viewing. It is everybody's story.
Exactly.
Just the magnitude is different. But it's all of our stories. It's the story of Yeshua. Honestly, wow.
Exactly. There's an interesting scene in the film where, he's being chased and he goes into some of these underground caverns. And, he's a medic. He's got his medic bag, and he comes around a corner in the caverns, and there's a Japanese soldier who's wounded. And you see the terror, because here's an American military man standing in front of this wounded soldier. And what this man does is simply offer him medicinal support. Though he's supposed to be the enemy, what he does is he functions like a human being. And that's just what more of us need to be learning to do, is to function as human beings. Whoever's in front of us, when few recognize the power of the words of this man, Yeshua, when he says, "Be the presence of love for those who hate you. Do good to those who despitefully use you." Because the person who does that brings up the deepest hidden fears in us. And out of that, we want to lash out just the way our power person lashed out at us. As I apply forgiveness and remove that, then I get to stand in the space of love and offer that loving support. And if I can't, it's because I still have work to do. It's got nothing to do with them.
Yeah, that is profound. And I'm going to let you know right now, this is the first explanation about forgiving them that made 100% sense to me.
Sweet. Sweet.
Yeah.
And I'm not suggesting that you ever forgive them. Never, ever, ever forgive anyone for anything. Forgiveness, in the circumstance you're talking about, forgiveness is something that you will apply inside yourself to remove your fear that pulls them into your life. It's got nothing to do with them. Should you choose to engage in what the world calls forgiveness, and it's really pardoning, it's not forgiveness at all. Should you choose to let them off the hook, that's one thing, but that's not forgiveness. Forgiveness is a totally internal process where when I recognize I have something like fear, I apply forgiveness to get to the root of that fear and remove it. And this genius, Yeshua, 2,000 years ago, knew precisely and exactly how to do that. And that's what that wake-up sheet is all about. That's what the app is all about, is how to collapse the lies the mind tells us until we get to drop in directly to the root of that fear. And when the root of that fear is brought forward in the presence of active love, it dissolves and you're freed of it. That's forgiveness.
Why don't they have classes like this in college or even high school? I mean, they should.
There was a show that we did about, maybe 3 months ago now. Jeannie and I got a letter from a young lady whose mother had introduced her to the forgiveness process about 3 years earlier when she was 8. She'd been engaging in and doing forgiveness for 3 years. And at the age of 11, she wrote Jeannie and I a letter asking if we would mentor her on forgiveness because she was doing a school project where she was going to teach the forgiveness process to her classroom in school. And she explained to us that at the age of 11, she knew exactly why she was on planet Earth, and what she was going to do was she was going to teach forgiveness and love on a planet-wide scale. She called in, and the archive is there in the radio show. But if I know Jeannie, she's already put the link in the notes for today. The archive is there. You can listen to this 11-year-old as she asks the questions and walks through a worksheet that she had to do. And she wanted that as a sample to play for her class in teaching forgiveness. So pretty awesome. And yeah, I sure wish I'd had these tools at the age of 8 or 11 or 15 or 20 or 25 or 30. It sure would have been a different game.
I don't know if it's just your eloquent way of speaking, but for the first time, and I'm still in awe, I was completely able to follow along, and it made 100% sense. And that doesn't
Sweet.
happen. I consider myself an intelligent person, or reasonably intelligent, and you're right. You just pinpointed forgiveness. Whenever it's done because you're told to do it, it's just not gonna stick. It's not gonna stick because you're not being told the underlying reason why you need to do it. Because of the resonance, because we're all walking around like tuning forks, attracting what we've got inside, bringing it back outside.
You got it. You've got it.
I wish. Oh my gosh.
There's another.
I don't know. Go ahead.
There's another interesting film out there, and I use this film as an example to say to people, here, look at this. This is what the average person is carrying around inside of them that you're passing as you walk down the street. And there was a psychology professor at Stanford University back, I think it was in the 70s. And he had a section of the school that was going to be closed for the summer. And he decided to do an experiment. He put an ad in the school newspaper and had these Stanford kids, they're fairly upper class kids, not people living in poverty, but fairly, on the upper echelon going to Stanford. And he put an ad in the paper, and we're going to pay you $10 a day. This is back in I guess it was the 60s when $10 actually meant something. So if you don't have a summer job and you'd like to come participate in our experiment, we'll pay you $10 a day for 2 weeks of your time. And they show these kids in the movie. There's a Hollywood version of the movie. There's also a documentary, but the Hollywood version is it's exacerbated and strengthened, but it's interesting to watch because, these kids come in, they're nice kids, and they meet each other in the interview room, and hey, how you doing? Yeah, you can do this too. Oh, great. Well, it'll be fun to hang out, and, we'll get to know each other better. Well, the experiment was that they set up an environment that was much like a prison. To add realism to it, this professor had a connection with the local police. They had the police go around just to add some realism and pick up each of the people in the experiment as though they were being booked for a crime. They've got this lower level of the school that's set up in a prison-like environment, and they choose some of the students to be jailers and some of the students to be prisoners. It was supposed to be a 14-day experiment. It went so far off the rails and became so vicious that they had to stop the experiment within 8 days. Wow. And there was conversation about putting the professor that set it up in jail for doing it. It gives a really powerful picture of what people are carrying around inside of them and pretending that everything in their lives is okay. The average person on the street is carrying what you see in this film, and it is shocking. And that's what, the forgiveness process is about, is supporting people going inside themselves and removing these things so that once again we can truly function as human beings. I don't know if you're on the show when I asked the question, how many have ever held a newborn child? But, it's a question Jeannie and I have asked of tens of thousands of people all over the globe. How many have ever held a newborn? Describe the essence of the newborn. And everybody's answer is some variation on the theme of love. We all started out there. That's our created essence. But we lose that to the hostilities and fears of the world. And then we cover that up. We cover up that state of being, that state of love that we are, and we're told to go out and find somebody to love us. And so it's something we can get from someone else, or something we can do to somebody else, or something somebody else can do to us. And it's not possible. It's what we are. And when we lose contact with that, we become non-human. This work is about restoring every mind, heart, and being on the planet to actual human life, to actually living as the active presence of love. So that's what it's all about, and I'm delighted it's making sense to you. That means I'm doing my job properly. Yay.
Oh, yeah. Your ability to elaborate is so... I can see pictures when you're talking. I literally saw the movie when you were talking. I mean, you're an awesome, dynamic orator. I was watching a movie.
You'll have fun going back and watching again, because with the brain cells that you've just built about it, it'll take on a whole different meaning, I suspect.
Well, you took on a whole different meaning for me because, like I said, I am spiritual, but this is taking it to an understanding level of concepts that are crystal clear. And I consider myself reasonably intuitive, but this was crystal clear beyond. This is exactly what I needed, and I asked for it this morning in my morning prayers. So, and I brought it. Thank you so much.
Fabulous. Well, I look forward to hearing how the process unfolds with you as you become familiar with it, and as you use the wake-up sheet process. If questions come, the purpose of us being here is to answer those questions, so please call back, report how you're doing with it, any refinements, any support that's needed. That's what we're here for.
Indeed. Amen. Thank you all very much. God bless you for your hard work.
All right, and blessings to you too. And we're down to the last few seconds, so I'm just going to say to everybody, mucho gracias, and have the best year yet of your eternal life. It's an awesome gift to give the world. Blessings. Bye-bye.